What do you reckon, mate? Do you want to go
Well,
live?
yeah. Let's do it. It's been a little while.
We were just saying beforehand, we're in our 5th year of doing this now. So,
Yeah.
mate, welcome back.
Not
welcome,
my 5th year.
No, but welcome back to live TV. So, hey, this is Axon's live Q&A. My name's Robbie Turner. I'm joined here by my main man, left-hand man, Ryan, the main man, Lewis.
Oh, Jesus.
That's almost like a bloody wrestling introduction.
Bloody
In the blue corner.
Let me get my mammal suit out and I'll get back.
We ain't fighting, mate. One thing I want to pass on, ladies and gents, we've actually got some structure for the first time tonight. We've sort of morphed into, at first, because there was so much going on, just literally, this is what's been going on for the last few weeks, and you just knew what was happening. Then I'm like, let's write a couple of questions, just sort of bring it forward. Then we're like, here's a couple of main bullet points. But now, as we all evolve, we've actually got some structure. So first little bit we'll talk about is some Axon updates. So first and foremost, let's get some sort of preliminaries out of the way. Use the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from. This is your opportunity to basically ask us anything about what's happening in the property space.
We do have a bit of a run sheet, but we just would love questions.
Yeah, we're here for you.
Yeah.
If the chat just gets filled up with questions and we don't have anything on this run sheet,
I'm going to need that.
I was about to do that, and you're going to don't run over it. Live TV. But yeah, we'll do some Axon updates. We'll do some news and updates. We'll do some coaching stories and lessons, the old stories from the trenches, if you like. And then we're like, right, what's coming up next? So we got a shit ton of stuff to pass on. And some people say, if you're coaching your clients in the evening, what do you do during the day? And if I was to ask you that, like, what does a coach, what does an Axon employee here, coach, property specialist, build support, marketing, client care, what do we do during the day?
As a coach, I'm generally doing the admin from the night before or prepping for clients coming in the night of. So, it's a lot of catching up on all of the stuff that you guys don't see we do to get the plan ready, either to go off to Deb or if we're further in the planning journey. And then it's really just diving into the market, understanding where are we, the builds and the builders and the land availability and all that sort of stuff.
Pretty much in line with what I was saying. Like, okay, there's a bunch of so what's that always come from a coaching session. So like, ring the financial planner, ring the accountant, ring the mortgage broker, ring the solicitor, ring the builder, ring the someone to basically sort out and put the mechanics of the plan into place. So that's what we do during the day. And what does that bring? It just brings so many opportunities for us to now pass on, like fly on the wall conversations, really, for everyone there to go, okay, what have you guys been talking about? And people have some fucking wacky ideas sometimes, and we'll get to it, but people love working the system.
Yep.
I'm entitled to this. What if I do this, and this? Is that going to work? I'm like, it might work.
Maybe.
But let's keep you out of the fraud basket in the first instance. But then, like that's the dynamics of it. But then also, like, no, the lender won't lend you the money, or your missus doesn't have a job when you're new location. So how can you build a house before you get there? So there's just all that sort of stuff I can't wait to sort of pass on. But, please go ahead and use the chat box. I can't see the chat box on my end for some reason tonight. So, Daniel, you might need to help me out there, mate, a little bit if you can. Maybe he'll do that. So if you're dialing in with stuff, then I'll let Daniel sort of let us know where you're coming in from.
My microphone's on a very impressive swivel now. No one can see it, but the studio is getting more and more impressive everywhere.
Yes, it is, mate. We went to Sydney and Canberra in the first instance.
Yeah.
Client meetups.
Yep.
What do you like about them?
Well, as I was telling some clients last night, actually, talking about our next client meetup, that everybody I meet outside of Axon is via Zoom.
Yeah, of course.
So until we have a client meetup, I'm only interacting with people over Zoom. So it's a really great opportunity to meet the people that you've come to know so well and have such a large impact in their lives, and meet them in the flesh and have a drink and have a chat and talk about military or property or just whatever else is going on. And I always tell people, before you meet me, just a heads up, I'm shorter than you think.
Yeah.
They go, really? I'm like, yeah, you'll understand when you meet me.
Some people say that to me. Oh, you're shorter than what I thought. I'm like, thanks. 5'11" and a half. It's always trying to search for that extra inch in height. Put some extra shoes on. But you're right. Communicating with Zoom and meeting people over Zoom and getting to know people over Zoom is super powerful. Once you get used to it, it's the way of the world these days.
Yeah, of course.
So many people over the years are like, oh, why don't you have an office in Darwin? Why don't you have an office in Townsville? The first thing that springs to mind, I'm like, imagine if I said to like Damo, hey Damo, Axon posting orders are out. You're going to Darwin next year. People are like, get fucked. No. I left that world. I can now choose where I want to be. So that's, we're not going to have an office out the front of bloody Robbo Barracks anytime soon because no one wants to go and be posted there unless you love your boating, camping, fishing, of which a lot of us don't because we're all broken old veterans. And the next thing is everyone exists on the internet.
Yeah.
You got a phone, you got a laptop, boom, there's your bloody shop front.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it is great. So we've had Sydney, Canberra, Brisbane just on Friday night gone. Yep. How good was that?
Yeah, that was
always a big turnout.
Great one.
Yeah. Always a great turnout.
Beautiful
and
venue.
just how amazing is it to be in the room and everyone's like just filled with love and filled with gratitude and filled with laughter and filled with stories and just filled with like, thank you so much for helping us. You know, we are so much further ahead on our wealth creation journey based on using it. I'm like, cool, man. That's what we're here for. Like it's not the other. You're here drinking my beer and eating my sausage rolls, and the canapes are a bit nicer than sausage rolls, by the way. Of course, we don't have any cucumber sandwiches there because Simo doesn't eat cucumber sandwiches, and that's what's always served in the officer's mess. So we don't just do that anyway either. But people don't generally come along. There's no fucking chest poking going on. But we pick a window you're leaving anyway. But yeah, mate. But what I also did a couple of weeks ago was head down to Melbourne, like I did with you earlier in the year.
Yes, we did.
And we went and did a site visit down there because we've got about 25 properties, I reckon, being built down in Melbourne at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've been down there and done the site visit. What's some of the key things we look at and identify down there?
I mean, the biggest thing for the Melbourne market is the sheer scale of development. Right? It's a global city, and it is just the amount of development, like Stockland and Lendlease, and the number of master plan communities that they're building down there is, in terms of scale to other areas that we invest in, it's miles ahead.
Yeah. Let's just use a, really, can I use the term happy hunting ground? You know, the Ripley corridor, right next to the RAF base Amberley, as well. There's us talking to one of the builders down there now with Karina. Townhouse project there right next to a beautiful park. The client paid like $680 for that. They sold the one on the end already for $760. They haven't even finished building yet. Ooh. That's me doing a little video call with them and say, hey, buddy, how awesome is this? But, that Western Growth Corridor of Brisbane, there's like maybe 6 or 7 master plan communities within the whole Ripley corridor. Down here, we're talking like 40 master plan communities side by side by side by side. So even though there's going to be like 130, 140,000 people live in the Ripley Valley corridor in another 10 years or so, we're talking like 400,000 people living in a certain corridor down there. So the scale that you refer to, mate, is off the charts massive down there. Sure, there's a fair bit of land down there, but it's not just about the infrastructure and the scale of things. It must be somewhere where people are attracted to live from a population growth perspective.
Got to be driven by population
and
growth.
all the stats and all the data. And, I loved it. There's a very well-known statistician, Michael Matusik, that released a report recently.
Town planner too.
Yep. We still going, mate, are we? Okay,
cool.
Look at this, live TV. Like, do you want me to yell? People in town who can't hear me, I'll just yell a little bit loud. I'll just use yours for a second. I knew we'd share one day, Ryan. It's all right. But yeah, when you've got the gurus out there talking about the population growth potential of the Melbourne markets and the Melbourne corridors, I'm like, fucking beautiful. We've been down there for 12 months now.
Yep.
So it's really it's really reassuring that we are pointing in the right direction to give our clients. Because when I went out to Ripley in 2014, there was fucking nothing there. There was, I know we've got a slide coming up certainly so soon, Daniel, but that from a horizons point of view, you don't need to be focused on what's happening in the next 2 years. What's happening in the next 10 years? That's the only thing you should be thinking about when you're buying a property, so anywhere. Yeah. We're coming to everyone now live and uninterrupted from downtown Robina on the Gold Coast, and we're within a week of a very important day of the year. As a property investor,
oh right,
and a business owner, no, it's the EOFI,
the big one,
end of financial year.
Yes.
End of financial year. So we absolutely did recently, as we've done every year, a tax time masterclass, would you call it, Daniel? Maybe this time was a fireside chat. Jason and I basically sat in here and shot the shit for about 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, really, really great chat. Yeah, I watched that the other day.
About Fantastic. All things, as an avid property investor yourself, take your Axon hat off for a second. What was a key concept that Jason and I was talking about that was a good little reminder for you to go, it is coming up to tax time, I need to pull my finger out?
Yeah, I think one of the things which jumped out at me, and it was one of the conversations I had with a client last night, was the difference between your own home debt and your investment property debt.
Yep.
And the tax deductible nature of the interest that you pay and how to use your offset appropriately for one versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a good little reminder, because I was talking to some clients last night that will be moving back into their own home, which then turns that into non-tax deductible debt. And they wanted to know where.
Your own home to attack the non-tax deductible debt.
Yep.
Noting, of course, we're not your accountant. We're not providing any sort of financial advice. Don't send this video to ASIC. It's not what we're doing. This is like layman's terms, options. Seek your specific service provider's guidance before doing anything. But it just makes sense, right? Because look, at the end of the day, the tax laws in Australia say that if you're living in your own home, none of the expenses, interest, rates, insurance, maintenance, nannies, whatever, tax deductible.
Dogs, can I claim those? No.
But all of those costs, except for the nannies and the dogs, are all tax deductible when it comes to an investment perspective.
Yep.
Consult your accountant for specific advice. But yeah, mate, it's good to be able to, it's just that little, do you love the penny drop moments that people have? They're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's okay. You're an expert avionics fitter for the bloody growler. You don't need to know what's going on.
That's right.
You leave that up to us, and we're here to make sure that you do have an awesome.
And
experience.
it was a good little reminder too. I had some clients a couple of weeks ago that already had an accountant before they reached out to us. I said, "Well, how's that relationship? How's that going?" And I think she's affectionately known around Townsville as Dodgy Debbie. So there's a lot of
The accountant.
Yeah.
I used to go to a barber up there called Lightning Lenny, and that's fine. You get a shitty $20 haircut. 2 weeks later,
it'll grow back. For
2
a couple
days
of days.
later for you. Sorry, I'm pointing my. But you don't want to be working with Dodgy Debbie. No.
Yeah. So and they didn't. It was just income tax at that point, right? So, well, salary tax, I should say. So I had the chat about, well, if you're now going to be property investors and you've got $500,000, $750,000 asset, and it's an income producing asset, do you really want someone named Dodgy Debbie looking after your portfolio and your tax?
Yeah.
And they were both like, it's probably not a good idea, is it?
Yeah. You definitely play the tax game
Of course.
to a much higher level.
Yeah.
Like I remember, right? You buy a new pair of boots, you buy a new G-Shock watch, not a Raffy. You buy a new bivvy bag. Ryan's like, what's a bivvy bag?
Yeah.
You don't need to know. So you're buying the 4, 5, 6 grand's worth of stuff and you're trying to get 2.5, 3 grand back in your tax. I did it for 20 odd years. I know how it works. But when you have an investment property and you're getting $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 back in your tax return, and your personal stuff gets put on top of that, if you keep buying your G-Shock, your bloody boots, your bivvy bag, you don't need a bivvy bag every year. Well, you might, depending on the unit that you're with, but you get the picture, right? But yeah, don't. And it's the same where people are like, oh, the solicitor's like $3 grand to do all my contracts and everything. I'm like, yeah, I know. Oh, but I did a bit of a search online and I can get fucking Dodgy Karen. Sorry, shout out to all the Debbies and Karens out there. That
Get a bit of hammering tonight.
They can do my conveyancing for $500. I'm like, don't nickel and dime yourself to get someone who's going to provide that full and comprehensive, ultimate peace of mind legal protection by fucking paying them $500 to do your conveyancing. Just pay for a solicitor and get it done properly.
Yep.
Mindset, axons, it's how it all goes, mate. So yeah, I'm glad you had those chats. Anyway,
It was a good one to just, and it's again in line with, it is tax time. It is really important to reach out to a qualified, legitimate, property savvy accountant if you've got property. Investments. Yeah.
And pull your finger out as well, because one of the things that Jason and I said, he goes, there's probably 25% of people that are like, fucking oath, I'm onto it straight away.
Yeah.
If there's 10 plus grand sitting in the ATO's account, I need that in my bank account to go and do whatever. But then the other 75% just like drip feed themselves through for the next 6 months and finally get around to it fucking when they get to it. And I raise your hand if you've been guilty about that over the years. It's all of you fucking say I. But when you, again, I said on video, I'm like, oh, but it's such a pain in the ass to bloody collect everything. And then when you finally pull your finger out and get it done, it takes a quarter of the time you thought it was going to do. You look back and go, fuck, that was easy. 10 days later, they're 10 grand in your bank account and you're like, why did I fucking wait for 3 months to get it done?
I'll be honest. This year, I did one this year, or I didn't. Jace did it in like January, February this year for the previous. So,
right.
Yeah, guilty, Your Honour.
Exhibit A, Your Honour. Guilty, Your Honour, Exhibit A. Hey, one of the things that we were going to, so we were supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago, but Daniel now with the mic that doesn't work was ill. So he's like, I could probably come in. I mean, my missus is sick and the kids are sick. I'm like, well, fucking stay away from me. I don't want to be sitting in a bloody studio, as amazing as it is, with you for an hour if you're fucking coughing and spluttering. So, but one of the big announcements we were going to make, because it was hot off the press, was all about the Queensland First Homeowners Grant.
Yep.
Take us through that, please.
Yeah, so last live that we did, we were talking about, hey, the $30,000 first homeowner grant is coming to an end because it was scheduled to finish on the 30th of June this year.
Yep.
In that time span, right before when we're going to have the live a couple of weeks ago, the state premier announced that they would be extending it for 12 months. So it was going to revert back to 15K, where it was 2 years ago.
And which it was for 10 years leading up to that.
Prior to that, yeah. But they've decided to continue to stimulate the housing market in Queensland and keep that 30K for the next 12 months.
Yep.
Which is huge.
So the two things that you and I were talking about on the thing were like, we really hope that they extend the grant, extend the time frame, but we also really hope that they up the cap on the price of the property.
Yeah.
So brand new home it must be for first homeowners grant to stimulate access to the lack of housing, so you can't go and buy an established property. But to buy, most people want to buy a 4-bedroom house as the staple median type of property in an area. Good luck trying to find a 4-bedroom home in a growth corridor in southeast Queensland, especially under 750.
Yep.
Very, very tricky.
Difficult.
So unfortunately, the market has moved far in excess of what the caps are, and now it's making it a lot, pretty tricky for people to be able to do that. So there's, so before we said speak to your accountant for specific advice, speak to your coach for a way that you might be able to navigate your way around
that first home in a grant,
But exciting times though.
Yeah.
Exciting times for sure.
And look, there's certainly, I've had a couple of clients that were eyeing off that 30K. It suit their circumstances and it suit their plan, but there was an element of, hey, we've got to get some stuff done fairly quickly to try and get it. Not letting the tail wag the dog, of course, but moving with a sense of purpose to try and get it. But now that we've got another 12 months, we can just slow down a little bit and take our time to source the right property for them.
I remember taking that email inquiry and I said, like, hey, mate, how you going? He goes, and it was like the 5th of June.
Yeah.
So we had like 25 days. And he's like, he's down in Sydney. We're moving up there. We don't want to miss out. We know it's going to end. I said, look, I'm sorry, but I need to pass you over to the other coach. I'm booked, committed with coaching and other stuff during that period. And thankfully you jumped on there and we tried to make it work. And then as soon as that extension kicked in, just the time pressure was released. And in fact, that's actually now brought upon a lot of other known unknowns. Yeah. Let's talk about that quickly because that's a really great case study of trying to maneuver yourself to not miss out on a particular grant.
Yep.
It's one of the things that I still love to this day. I'm sure you do, being a coach now for 2 and a bit years. How good is it putting a plan together and just maneuvering every aspect of one's life and you squeeze every dollar from a government and defence force perspective into someone else's bank account?
Yeah.
It's very satisfying, right?
Love it.
Coming from someone who used 0 of his ADF and government housing grants. So I'm trying to make up for a bit of lost time. I'll come to you in a second.
And I use all of them.
Yes. You're welcome.
Thank you.
But of course, the importance of the planning, as it became more and more involved, you're like, what about this?
Yeah.
What about this? What about this? And what were the answers to all of that 7? What about this?
Yeah. So we had 7 I don't knows. And I said to the gents.
And just give the audience a broad, like when I say like the sentiment of what about this? What about this?
Generally speaking, so this serving member was going to or likely to get out and relocate from Sydney to Brisbane with his partner. Because they're out and they want to relocate to Queensland, they want to get their own home because they don't have RA, they don't have DHA anymore, and they also had that 30K looming the deadline.
Totally understandable.
Which is, when you're out, you want a roof over your head, you want that stability. So that was the main strategic guidance for the plan. But as we build the plan, we spend a couple of hours up front starting to unpack the circumstances more. Some big questions fell out of the planning. So the obvious ones are, when you're getting out, what are you going to do after defence? What's your partner going to do after defence?
When you say do, what?
As in, what are they going to do for work?
Job and income.
Job and income. Because if you've got a job in Sydney as a civilian and you move to Brisbane and it's not a transferable skill, or you're not a teacher or you're not a nurse, even if you are, you've still got to have some sort of employment to go to. It's easier if you're still in uniform and you've got a posting order because hey, I'm just going up there and I'm going to get paid the same thing 2 weeks later.
Happy days.
But if you've got a complete career change from military to civilian, or your partner's got to find work, that becomes difficult to then get your own home before that happens. Right? The lender's going to want to understand what are your incomes going to look like before we say yes to a owner-occ loan, essentially.
Yep.
So a couple of I don't knows there. Whereabouts in Brisbane, I don't know. It ended up being about 6 or 7, which I told you about, and 6 or 7 I don't knows doesn't equal a green light to implement and execute a property acquisition.
I loved it when you walked out of that pod. I said, how'd you go delivering a success package to that wonderful couple? And they're like, actually, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's interesting. The people don't normally get to that stage, and the natural next step, Ryan, is for them to then want to implement the plan. I'm like, tell me that. So then, boom, like we do, you and I just sat down and I was like, well done, man. This is another lived example, real life experience of having a coach on your team that's not just like, oh, yeah, sweet, we'll fucking slam dunk the property and we'll take care of the rest of it after. No. Let's have all the hindsight conversations in the here and now to fully unpack what the broader circumstances are of your life. Because if there's a few amber lights kicking around and you decide to pull the trigger and you put a deposit down on something, and you go unconditional, and you're like, and then you work out you could never get the finance in the first place. What a complete waste of time, and you might back yourself into a corner where you lose out big time.
Pretty nasty corner. Yeah.
So, well done, man. I loved it that you erred on the side of caution. Discretion's a better part of valor, whatever other analogy you want to use. The right thing to do is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it's not the end of the journey. We're just continuing the planning cycle. We've got a few events that have got to occur that will turn those known unknowns into knowns, and then we can execute.
And whether it's yeses or nos?
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, mate. I just wanted to go on. I'm sorry, Daniel, we've had your hand up in the air for a while now. Luckily, you've got some very strong shoulders there, mate. Talk to me.
I've got a question from Instagram, this one. And it is, when's the best time to claim DHOAS? I'm currently eligible for Tier 2, but I would like to qualify for Tier 3. Do I have to wait or update once I hit 8 years?
Yeah. Cool. Good. Yeah, great question. Great question. First and foremost, DHOAS is a retention tool used by the military to allow you to buy your own home. That's the intent of the scheme in layman's terms. Everything we talk about is layman's terms. Consult the fucking DHOAS website if you want the quote. And DHOAS doesn't go forever, therefore there's finite amount of years.
Yep.
So depending on your circumstances, like if it's the right time for you to pull the trigger and get your HPAS and get your DHOAS and get your first homeowners grant and all those other bits and pieces I'm talking about, then the sooner you can have DVA providing a subsidy on your home loan, the better.
Yeah, of course.
But if you've only got, based on your years of service in any warlike service, let's say 13 years worth of DHOAS credits, and you burn the first 4 of those on Tier 2 whilst you're waiting Tier 3 to tick in, then you don't get as much of a benefit in entirety. But if the payoff is that you have, it's the only opportunity for you to use DHOAS while still serving, then go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I agree.
So ideally Tier 3 gives you the best bang for buck. That's a statement. But it's got to fit. It's almost like it depends on where you're at and what your future plans are.
Yeah, there's a lot that would go into that answer. Where are you living? Where do you want to buy? Where are you posting? Are you getting out soon?
How long you got to go in your current posting? Yeah.
Where are you at in Tier 2? How far away is Tier 3? There's a lot that goes into answering that diligently. But yeah, from a layman's terms, I agree. Clearly better if you've got Tier 3 because it's more dollars in the mortgage at the end of the month.
Yeah.
However, if it is the right time to pull the trigger on your DHOAS and you are only at Tier 2, you're still getting some mortgage subsidy to help you pay the loan each month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give a little shameless plug. We'll never do this, but it's compelling in the here and now because we get the phone rings every day with someone making – this is old school shit.
Yeah.
Like ring the landline. Who the fuck rings a landline
pat
of a
phone,
business? Yeah. But I love every single day and not poor old Kelly, but the wonderful Kelly sitting straight at the door here, answers the phone and takes the inquiry. And generally it comes to Ryan and I going, I've got bloody John and Sam on the phone here. And they wanted to know how to when to use their DHOAS. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about what people are trying to achieve, as well as all the email inquiries and the connection calls that come through, et cetera, et cetera. When people watch our educational videos to get their head in the game and know how sort of sequentially it all works with some awesome case studies in there that we put forward. I call them awesome because I created them and I present them. What a wanker. But they are groundbreaking, let me tell you. And then the 3 brand promises that we provide is that you will give in the coaching, will give you clarity on your current circumstance, give you a plan to follow so you've got some strategic direction. Because imagine, who was the person that asked that question? Oh, it's an Instagram handle, doesn't matter. Jono on the Instagram handle. Imagine not having the opportunity to reach out to someone to get clarity on that and just having a crack.
Yep. Just
what a precarious position to
Pac-Man
be
and going,
in.
let's just do it.
Yeah. So, I guess what I'm saying is that this is important. There is potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars at play here. It's your financial future that you're flirting with. Just reach out and get some bloody assistance. It says you don't need to do it by yourself.
No.
I stuffed a few things up when I was serving and got out after my humble 24 years, not using any of my ADF or government grants. Not because I didn't want to, but there was no one like me having a conversation like I am with you now. Like, sure, there were some other ex-military people around at the time that I got out, and there's a few more now. God bless their rotten socks. That you do have a bit of choice and you should reach out to someone to get some sort of guidance on what the fuck you're doing. Because you're a perfect example then of like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And just on as a closing of the loop there, what was the response from those clients when you said, I don't think we should proceed right now?
Yeah, actually, it's a good point. Their shoulders immediately dropped was the biggest thing. And Jay said to me, mate, thank you. Said, that feels right.
Good.
So he had I think he was putting himself in the corner to get that grant, and for someone to objectively sit back and go, hey, I don't think this is the right time. It's not a no forever. It's just not right now. And here's when we are going to potentially proceed. Yeah, it was like a weight lifted off his shoulders.
So good to see you, mate. Well done. Let's keep going on this particular rant then. Not rant, sort of direction. I said it in my opening statement there about people trying to work the system.
Yeah.
And I love the industrious nature of defence. Like,
it's awesome.
Like
it really
having
is.
high levels of initiative
Yep.
and being industrious is a great trait.
Problem
to have.
solving and it really is. Yeah.
But of course, we need to make sure that it's legal, it's right, it's feasible to be able to do that. And we had. I'll just sort of set the scene and you can then tell the story. It's almost like, because you tell me the stories, I'm like, I'm going to ask Ryan about that. And you always receive the curly ones, which I love because you're going narrow and deep.
Had some crackers,
In broad terms, I think, Daniel, you got a graphic to bring up. Someone's like, hey, I've had a bit of a thought. If I buy the property in a trust, I don't own the property. The trust does. The trust can then rent it. I can then rent that property from the trust through and there and still get paid my RA or something similar to that. I'll stuff that up. I know I have. But even then, you and I looked at each other, I'm like, I don't think I've been asked that before, and I hadn't. So you and I had to sit down for a little while. I'm like, let's actually dissect this a little bit.
Yep. Dived into Pac-Man for a bit.
Yeah. How did that actually? And you had some really good dialogue with him. Here we go. So buys the house in a trust.
Yeah.
Gets the rental assistance. Claims rental assistance.
Essentially, the serving member's living in his own home.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So he wasn't entitled to RA.
No. So he's not entitled to anything except his DHOAS.
Yes.
Right. So he's living in his own home, and he didn't have the DHOAS on the property because of the interest rate and stuff. So he's just living in his own home and currently in his posting location, so currently not getting any defence entitlements. And his industrious curiosity, I guess, and his potential course of action was to put the property into a family trust, but stay in the property and essentially rent it back to himself and his brother and also there's 2 other rooms that he's renting out, so he's kind of double dipping. But then because it's owned by a trust, get RA, right? Which when you first think of it, you go, that can't be right. Like it doesn't pass the sort of common sense test. But when you start to think about, oh, does it work? Does it work? But we'd have to dive into the definitions of trust
And ownership.
which is the biggest part of sitting inside a trust. And the so what out of it was you can't do that. And it was the first time we heard of it. So that's a good indicator that you can't do it because, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time.
Well, no, longer than you,
Yeah.
and not as long as others.
And if it was a thing, I'm sure we'd have used it or other people have used it before. And essentially what it came down to was putting yourself potentially in the scope of or the line of sight of the authorities, fraud and all that sort of nasty stuff. So, yeah, interesting one.
And when you got back to him and said, bro, we do not recommend you undertake this based on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
What, again, close the loop?
Yeah. So I said to him, mate, look, this is our interpretation.
We're not the delegate.
Not delegate, but no bullshit. We don't think this is a viable thing for you. We don't recommend it, but if you want to pursue it, go have a chat to a solicitor and an accountant. But we think you might be placing yourself in the realms of fraud. And the response was, thanks heaps. Yep, that makes sense. I'm pretty pissed off because I'm not getting any entitlements. I'm like, okay, man. Is it worth your service though? You know what I mean? Like it's,
You probably put 2 hours of work towards that.
Yeah,
Though. You're like, hey,
yeah.
I'm not sure, but let's do it. And this was just a generic email inquiry.
Yep.
So, again, what do you guys do as coaches during the day? Well, we field random inquiries from random people and then have a collective sort of gaggler here and say, okay, what's everyone thinking? Ex-warrant officer Class 2 Simpson, which is the Axon RSM, basically opened up the bloody entitlements manual and he's like, right, definition, search, ownership, bang, and it just came up.
Got ChatGPT to help us a little bit as well. Obviously use that stuff.
It's fucking amazing how much ChatGPT knows about HPAS and DHOAS and the first time owners grant. So use it.
Absolutely. Used it to our advantage. And it's not to say we're not strategic in the systems that we put in place, but it's got to be legal. Right?
Yeah.
It's there is working the system and breaking the law. So
we're on the first page and we're halfway through. Hey, just quickly, but let us know in the chat, ladies and gents, how much you're enjoying this. I hope a little bit. The observation I'm making whilst I'm even delivering this little sermon here is not a lot of the time, where appropriate, we say no or provide the guidance of, I don't think that's a good idea. Now, whatever you think of that from a character and integrity perspective, I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah.
But I'll go back and the right thing to do. So it's interesting that others may think differently on that. But it'll all come out in the end. The outcome will reach the end user at some stage from a legal or a financial or a taxation point of view. What you've been trying to wrangle, the rubble will hit the road at some stage. And if it was doomed from the start, you are Mick-fucked. That's a technical term for up shit creek with no paddle. While we were talking about trust, there's another circumstance that I'm coaching some clients at the moment. There's been a very long-standing family trust in place, intergenerational I'm talking about. And now they've decided, they're like, we want to be able to buy a property for the kids, adult kids, for them to be able to have benefit of down the track. And it's sort of Debbie, the finance broker, is now sort of unpicking all that because there's going to be some lending involved. So we need to understand from a bank's policy perspective what the charter or the trust deed, the rules of the road are. And I did mention this to us. So look, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do that because it depends on exactly the way that the trust was set up in the first place, whether it's got a corporate trustee or not, who are the beneficiaries of the trust. And I think, again, I'm probably getting ahead here a little bit, but it's looking unlikely that the current status of that intergenerational family trust may prohibit them from being able to borrow the right amount of money to, in fact, achieve what the new outcome is. So what's the so what out of that is sit with your financial planner, sit with your accountant and war game, spitball, assess, have hindsight conversations like if we establish this family trust and we want it to be intergenerational, which I'm a massive fan of, set it up where it gives you maximum versatility and flexibility down the track as your lives evolve. So Yeah, there's lots and lots of pros and cons when it comes to trust. It's beyond the scope of this circumstance. Jace Jace Cosgrove and I from Your Wealth Corporation have discussed it before. Well, I've asked the questions and he's spoken about it, he being Jace, as the licensed professional. But yeah, definitely engage with someone as soon as possible to have that chat, just so you've got that viability, feasibility check up front.
I think it's really insightful. It's all these sorts of questions is another example for those out there watching. Like for those that have watched our videos, we talk about the case studies, which is you might be buying your first investment property, which is pretty ones and twos. Like it's pretty standard, not easy, simple. But then we can, as portfolios develop, we can bring these SMEs on. We can talk things like trusts to really start to set strategies up to make sure that your portfolio is going to maximise itself.
Stand the test of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Give that intergenerational benefits, etc. Let's jump on another one here because this was another one of yours, by the way. You spoke to some clients who are like, oh, hey, tell us a bit about your situation. They're like, yeah, we bought a unit over in Perth and then we decided to do some research.
Yeah.
And how did that go? So the thing is like buying on a whim and then perhaps regretting it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was another really interesting call and
you get all the fun. I just get to hear it from you.
I'm laughing because it's a
lovely couple.
Yeah,
though.
lovely couple.
Awesome to speak to.
Yeah, really, really great. Really love what we do. We've spent a lot of time sort of coaching what the next move is, but to go upstream a little bit, they reached out to us. The first message that I got from this gent was, "G'day, Axon. I've bought a property in Perth. I don't know if I've done the right thing. Can you help me figure it out?" Yeah. And you look at that as the first kind of salvo and go, "Oh shit, what's happened here?"
But has the humility and the self-awareness for someone to say, I think I've stuffed something up.
Yeah, like
so I said, Ryan, fix that.
Yeah, exactly right. A high achieving military person has reached out and went, "I think I've made a mistake," or I've at least made a mistake by not doing my research first. So it's an interesting one to buy a property first and then research about location, research about what a loan is, research about tax.
Do they fly from somewhere? From the East Coast?
Yeah,
over there for a short period of time.
Did a red eye to go and look at it. Did the red eye to find a solicitor. Find all the key networks that you need. Did all of that in the space of a week, and then with a newborn back home, a really sort of pressure cooker type situation. Thankfully, so far the property's performing okay because Perth's pretty buoyant at the moment. But there's been some follow-on effects that when you don't know what you're doing, that are coming to fruition now, which is the ability to continue to build your portfolio based off not structuring that one the right way, is now coming into effect. Yeah.
So it's not doom and gloom. It's just a consideration that we have to now, work towards.
It's just another consideration, and we're now building a plan to go, hey, we can't go right now because of that decision. That's okay. The next sort of go criteria will be X, and then that's when we can start to look at building your portfolio from there.
Yeah, awesome. Over to me for a change.
Sure.
I've got... I love it when someone watches our case studies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so tell me about the case studies. Like, I think it was case study number 7. I'm like, delayed gratification. I'm like, that's me. I was watching that case study. I'm like, that's exactly my circumstance. I'm like, tell me about that. Like,
people don't usually pick that one.
No.
No.
But this lady, army officer, is being deployed.
Yeah, okay.
Literally deploys in another week or so.
Yep.
And I said, okay, so what was your key takeaway? She's like, well, I know I'm going to go away, save a couple of $100,000 whilst I'm away, tax-free. I discovered that we can be smart with the use of our concurrent activity. I'm like, fuck, that's exactly what I said on the video. She goes, yeah, concurrent activity is an army major, right? So it's pretty switched on, very switched on. And she's like, let's do it. Let's put a plan together. Let's go through the initial machinations and let's set the ambush and have a really good understanding about what the circumstances are around my, borrowing power and situation that I want to do. So we've now done that. We've got a 95% plan. She's, down on pre-deployment leave at the moment, visiting her family in Victoria and dogs and stuff, and, bloody PJs. And we're the first couple of sessions we're done with her in a uniform because she's now, on leave. And I'm like, right, see you later. Go over there, get yourself established, send me a message on WhatsApp. Let's connect again later in the year, early next year. And we, and we're a warm start.
Yeah.
It's just such a really cool. I love it when people watch some generic information and it finds it that relatable. They're like, I need to speak to these dudes because that's the plan I want to put in play.
Yeah.
And breaking off track of this here, but I know that you had a conversation with some clients.
Yep.
And I think they sent an initial email saying, this is what we want.
Yep.
You said, please watch the videos. And then they watched the videos. And
Yep.
what was their response? Where was their opening liner to you?
Yeah, so we had a connection call on Zoom, and they went, "This is what we want to do. Their own home in their next posting location.
This is what we want, Axon.
Yeah. This is what we want you to help us with. The probing questions of, do you know what we do? Have you been following us for long? Have you watched our education videos? It's a really important part of the journey. And that for most of that, it was, not really. I said, hey, do me a huge favor.
Can I just butt in?
Go for
What
it.
about when someone's like, yeah, I've seen your videos. And then we watch another question. They're like, oh, I don't remember that bit. I'm like, yeah,
You haven't watched it.
It's so, please, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. I'm not calling you a bullshitter, but because we know people are so different after watching those 4 educational videos, maybe just chuck the link, Daniel, if you can, in the chat there. So any first time listeners wondering what the fuck are these videos that they're talking about, if people have watched a half-assed version of them or not all of them, it doesn't just become apparent during the call. It's like a fucking beacon going off going, they have not actually watched the whole of it. So please, I've butted in a little bit, but I love what they came back.
Yeah. So I said, please do me a favor and spend the weekend sitting down and watching the videos. 4 20-minute videos. I said, it will change how you think and feel. I guarantee it. So we caught up again the next
It's a big
week.
statement to make.
Yeah, but I back it because I've been doing it for a bit.
That's good.
Wouldn't say it otherwise. And yeah, we caught up again, a few days later, and the first thing that they said to me was, we feel so silly. Yeah, we feel stupid. I was like, you're not stupid.
And you would have went, why? Yeah.
You're not stupid. You were just going down a path that you thought was right. And now it's not wrong by any means, but there's just another way to think depending on what you're trying to achieve long term. So as we started to unpack that a little bit more, it was clearly evident that essentially they were going to put themselves in a 30-year mortgage trap, which is one of the other case studies. And that might have been it in terms of wealth accumulation for a little bit, as opposed to, in a location that might not be doing too well compared to others and all that sort of stuff that we talk about. So, it was a really, I had a big smile on my face. So did they. They were like, oh, we're so sorry. We feel so silly, but we're so keen. And we are case study, journey to dream home. That's us.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
4.
Yeah.
I
4.
believe.
Yeah. That's what we want to do. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Let's
So
do it.
good.
Yeah.
So good. I remember you saying, because it's a co-presentation activity between myself, you, and Simo.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, that's our guy.
Yeah,
when you came on and you were talking about location and property selection.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I literally, when you bounce out of the thing, you're like, oh, so how'd your connection call? You're like, you should hear what they just said. It's fucking cool, mate. I really, really love it. Hey, one of the things that, because we've done a big pivot down to Melbourne, is the whole land tax down there. We can't put our head in the sand and go that bloody Dan Andrews, the ex-premier.
Yep.
The broad sentiment across there, I know you're watching, Dan, as you always do, mate. Appreciate your support. Is that perhaps your performance during the COVID period, when Melbourne went from the most livable, desired city in the world 2 years in a row, beat New York, beat Singapore, beat everyone 2 years in a row in the lead up to COVID, and then became the most locked down city, yes, that's right, in the world, under the dictator Dan ship, as it was AKA known, that there's a big fucking debt that state has.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, cool.
Recoup some funds.
We need to recoup some funds. Side note, we live here on the Gold Coast. Tropical Cyclone Alfred came through, devastated all the beaches.
Yep.
All the ratepayers here now, including us on the Gold Coast, we're now being slugged an extra $40, I think it is, a quarter, to pay for the fucking restoration of it all. So
and if you live in a high rise, you're going to get a view tax.
Lucky I'm not in a high rise. I'm in a higher than others rise, but not in a high rise. Welcome to being an adult, I suppose, when there's taxes involved.
Another reason not to get an apartment, but anyway, yeah.
Indeed. But of course, therefore, Victoria brought in a land tax.
Yeah, they had to recoup some funds.
So something like
COVID debt recovery, yeah.
It's not like I don't want it. It's like I've heard that there's land tax in Victoria. What does that mean? And you know my first response to him? I'm like, there'd be people living in Southeast Queensland or in Queensland and like, oh, there's land tax in Victoria. Maybe we don't want to invest there. I'm like, did you know there's land tax in Queensland? They're like, no. There just happens to be a minimum cap on land caps, which is like $650,000.
Yep.
If you own a value of your portfolio, land value of under $650,000, you don't have to pay land tax. If you own more than that, guess what? You're paying land tax.
Yep.
So it's not as if it's a if either or. It's got a bit of put forward there. But of course, upon us to do the deep dive, in Queensland, you've got to pay council rates. The council rates, let's just talk a normal 350 square metre block with a 180 square metre house, like a bog standard house in a master plan community. Look at me, I'm calling them fucking houses bog standard houses, right? But the vehicle that the 99% of you have used to create wealth in your life. The rates here in Queensland are just the same amount as the rates plus the land tax in Victoria. Yeah. Like, but we maybe prefer to invest in Southeast Queensland. Well, first and foremost, it's going to cost you an extra 150 grand.
To
like
get
a
in,
750, 800 up here. Down there, you can get in at 650, 700.
Yep.
So there's the price points. And by the way, land tax for me is a bit of a moot point because give or take a couple of $100, it's around about the same.
Yeah.
And last time I looked, ladies and gents, your financial future, the balance of power didn't exist in $200 back in fucking 2025. You're not going to care about a couple of $100 here or there when your property's gone up in value in whatever sort of way that looks like. So, again, it behoves us to know one of your points. I'm like, what do you do during the day?
Yeah.
You do this, all the post-call admin, and like, then I've got my head in the books. That was what's going on in the market.
Yeah. And I love when clients come in and say, hey, what's going on with Victorian land tax? Teach me about it. Because all they consume, most all they hear and see is news.com.
Correct.
Or whatever it might be.
It's media sentiment.
Media sentiment, right. And if you can objectively take a step back and look at it and go, yeah, there's land tax down there. There's land tax in every single state in Australia and territory. And they've got different caps and ranges that you pay the tax, but ultimately, as a property investor, no matter where you invest, there will be some form of land tax involved.
Yeah.
It does become interesting, and this is when strategy plays a part. If you're a multi-property portfolio investor across a number of states, then you can start to really look at, and this is, I think, some of the reasons why a lot of property investors left Melbourne a couple of years ago when they had multiple properties in Melbourne. Right, when you've got a couple of $1 million.
When you're saying multiple, you're saying 3 or 4, not
a couple
one
of
or two.
$1 million worth of land, or more, and threw the toys out of the cot because of the land tax. Right? Maybe not. That made sense, but for most property investors that have got a couple of investment properties, which is all you really need to secure your financial future, it's a moot point. Particularly when, as you said, you balance it over the life of the property with council rates, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. The other thing about Melbourne that we really noticed down there is, I'll go back to a statement I made. And Daniel, this is the horizon bit we're going to talk about, so grab your little image in a minute, please. Yeah, 2014, I first went out to Ripley.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. And I was like, why the fuck would anyone want to live out here and buy an investment property out here? Like Echo Ripley and the very first stages of it had just been cut and there was maybe 20 houses there. You drive in, there's 2 streets where the houses, Display Village over there, and nothing.
It's a farm, yep.
Nothing. Fast forward, some said, what about 11 years now, since 2014. And yeah, even 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were helping clients buy a 422 house in Ripley for 430 grand. And now it's like 830 grand.
Yeah.
Because it just goes back, it's like they got in early, I guess is what I'm saying. What you're seeing, I don't know if they're seeing up on that screen there. Is it coming through on the live screen here, Daniel? Yeah, it will be. Okay, mate, cheers. Is that when you buy a property and you get in early somewhere, you've got to have an horizon of that property. Look at it down the bottom here. If you're getting in at like 2016 and then by 2019, you've got the shits by going, I don't fucking think this joint's going up in value. I don't think we've made the right choice here. You have lost faith in the macro research, stats, data, infrastructure, population growth about why you bought the place in the meantime. Because imagine getting out in 2019, 2020. Have a look what you've missed out on. This is a real time. So this is some wonderful clients that I know that live up in Toowoomba, non-defense background. They're like, hey, we've bought our property. They bought in 2019, and they're like, hey, maybe it's time to sell. I'm like, okay, let's just have a quick look at like the direction of the market.
Yeah.
And this is in the Western Growth Corridor of Brisbane, not Ripley. It's a suburb adjacent to it, a bigger one for those that know. And I'm like, look at the growth you've had.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be selling this property? And it ain't over yet. All the infrastructure and reasons why people want to live there in the first place hasn't even been built yet. Yeah. Please don't sell that property.
Still got plenty to go.
So the key thing there is like, you know, if you are going down to see your investment property in Melbourne, you might go, fuck, there's a lot of land down here. And look, there's a town centre over there that hasn't been built yet. That train station's not there yet. Boom, boom, boom. You've got to have faith in what is coming.
Yep.
And
it's a long game.
You know, real estate agents look and do a comparative market analysis on what the property could sell for today or in the next 3 or 4 weeks. A valuer goes out there and they have to backcast and go, what has been sold over the last 6 to 8 weeks so I can use as comparable sales for what I think this property's worth.
Yep.
As a property investor, which direction are you looking? Forward. You've got to look forward to make sure that the infrastructure and the projects and the population growth and all those things about the 7 ingredients are coming your way, because when you put that flag in the sand, go back to the screen that you just saw then, I'm like, just ride that fucking wave and away we go. None of us have a crystal ball.
No.
You know, your property was the same down in Newcastle, right? You only had it for 2 and a bit years and made it 200 grand.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's always interesting when someone, and I know you've had some conversations about, oh, should we sell our property? Like, I don't know. Let's have a look at the direction of the market and make a educated guess on things. Yeah, so hopefully you found that insightful.
Yeah, it comes back to when I talk to clients about markets move in cycles, and ultimately when you're getting into the property asset space, it is a long game. It is about thinking long term. We want to, pending life circumstances, put your flag in the sand and hold on to that property as long as possible.
Yeah.
You know, I showed some clients last night the historical data of the average median house price of Melbourne over the last 30 years.
Well done.
And it's gone up 519% in 13 years.
30 or 13?
30 years.
30 years,
Yeah,
yes.
30 years, 519%. Right, but if someone had sold it in a 3 or 4 year period, they might have actually gone backwards because there would have been a little cycles.
Yep.
But holding on to that thing, you know, if you bought it in the 90s for $300,000 and it's worth $1 million, you know, that's ultimately what you're looking to achieve for the next 30 years for most people.
Yeah. You know, I talk about some pits in my stomach and some silly mistakes I've made in life, but I'm talking about property stuff for now. We haven't got enough time for the life stuff. That's fucking stop. Everyone's laughing. There were 2 of my mates when I was 18 years old down in Holsworthy. Only been in the army for 18 months. And they're like, hey, and they were both brought up in very well-to-do families. We're going to buy our first investment property, Robbie. You seem pretty switched on. We think you should get it done. You know, we're going to buy an established property here in Western Sydney for like 275 grand. And I'm like, fuck, I come from the country, mate, where houses are like $40,000. I'm on like 40 grand a year back in 1991 this was. And they went ahead and bought their first investment property as 18-year-olds in Sydney for 270 grand.
There's that pit.
Thanks. It goes longer than that. You can drop a fucking cannonball down there and there is no bottom. It's how far it goes. So, you know, and I've now blinked my eyes a few times, 10 times, and I'm fucking 30 years later, and how much do you reckon I wish I had done that? The old woulda, coulda, shoulda. So, yeah, time is our greatest enemy, but also our best friend if we're making some sort of smart decisions there. Let's switch gears a little bit. I hope everyone's loving this, by the way. I'm really enjoying delivering this, and because we've got no chat tonight, I can't see, you know, sort of whether people are providing us any feedback. So we're not ignoring you on the chat. I just can't see the chat, so I can't respond to it. I apologise about that. It's called a live Q&A, and there's no Q&A. It's just a live rant. Us telling stories from the trenches. But look, one of the other really topical things which is coming through, I know we've only got 6 minutes to go, and this may well be the last one, is, Rhino, give us some insights into, and you've got a young family yourself, the struggles and therefore the clarity and the planning that young couples must undertake when they're trying to grow a property portfolio and a family at the same time.
Yeah, it's really hard. It is really hard.
Interesting first response.
Yeah, it is hard because it's often comes with someone reducing work hours, which is reduced household income.
Generally the female.
Generally the female, yep.
That's anatomy.
Yep. It comes with increased costs because you've now got 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 mouths to feed, and then you've potentially got daycare costs and all that sort of stuff. So your cost of living goes up because you've got more dependents. That then impacts your ability to borrow, of course. So if you are trying to accumulate and build a portfolio whilst having a young family, it is difficult. It's certainly not impossible, but it's a slower journey for sure.
Yeah.
But it makes it so much more important to sit down and map that out. Yeah.
I feel like you and I have got a couple of clients each that are expecting mums.
Yep.
That being expecting wasn't on the plan.
Yeah. That's right.
Where they're expecting mums, but they're unexpected.
Yeah.
You know? And it's tricky to see the raw emotions that come through on the coaching. It's like, hey, how's everything going? And how's everything going? They're like, yeah, we're actually pregnant. I'm like, whoa, that's come out of the blue of it. They're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm really happy for you. They're like, And one of the clients, I'm like, and we're having twins. I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. No. We're still coming to terms with it. I put my foot in it all the time because I'm a pretty buoyant and somewhat optimistic person. They're like, no, we're actually really struggling with it. I'm like,
Okay.
I'll go put my foot in someone else's mouth then. But getting the finance broker involved immediately to get that clarity is, or how important is that?
Yeah. Because if it's about getting to a Y junction as soon as possible and getting to understand where you are borrowing wise, if that's what your goals are to accumulate. It may mean just some people, we're going to focus on the kids for 2 or 3 or 4 years and that's it, which is completely valid and normal as well. But getting Deb or a broker on as soon as possible allows us to create scenarios of when the next sort of window of opportunity might be.
Yeah.
When does parent go back to work? When does Bubs come out of daycare and go into public school?
Correct.
Which,
we're talking
I've
like
got a
sometimes
5-year-old that just went to school
$1,800 a
and
month
it's
sometimes.
Yeah. Public school's $200 a year or something versus a shitload in daycare.
I went to public. I know you don't believe me, but I went to public school.
I wasn't going to assume.
In the country.
So, there's all these things that need to be factored in. And I was talking to some clients last night about this and whether they should sell one of their properties. And ultimately it came down to, well, whilst you're on mat leave next year, what's life going to be like? Budget wise, we don't want you to be eating 2-minute noodles for that period and that sort of stuff. So it really is important to
love it,
map it out.
In all seriousness, we love the fact that people are creating a family and having that part of their evolution occur. But just don't do anything silly when it comes to anything with your finances without getting your finance broker involved straight away and come to our coaching sessions and tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek, we care deeply about what your circumstances are, even though I do fuck it up sometimes. Go for it, Daniel. We've got a couple of minutes to go.
Well, last minute question, but it's
Cool.
a big one. Right. So it is.
We may go over time tonight.
How much is a reasonable amount of capital growth to expect over a 5 to 10 year period when the purchase build price is already high? With a 700K property expect to grow an additional 500K versus the lower price builds and their capital growth we've seen in southeast Queensland.
Yeah. Excellent question.
Yeah.
A lot of thoughts got into that. Any author for that one?
Yes, I've got him here. That is Bradley James.
Bradley James. Cool. Bradley James just settled on his block with his third property with us down in Melbourne, in fact. Look, it's all about, Brad, no one has a crystal ball, buddy. When you're buying what you call a lower price point build, you're working within your budget. That's the first thing. So if you can only buy a $650,000 property, that's not a lower price property. That's the property you can afford with your budget. So that just is what it is. When I create the micro timeline and I've got that little bit of geometry going on, these are the things I'll say. Like, right, the differences between these two lines is the capital growth one should expect to get. You don't need, because we've got a 10-year horizon for all these properties, you don't need 20% growth in the first year.
Nope.
It's fucking awesome if that happens, but that's not why you bought the property.
Yep.
Okay? You don't want zero growth. You don't want negative growth. the expectations for a smart, long-term, strategic thinking property investor, Bradley James, is to make sure you've got that 5, 6, 7% compound year-on-year growth for a property over a long period of time.
Yep.
Now, as per the little video so Brad, that is a suburb adjacent to where you bought your first property with us. So the line's probably similar to what yours was. And again, you've just got to go back to the foundations. Like, I've bought this property to have a 10-year horizon on it. Assessing its viability after 3, 5, or even 6 years is not a smart activity to do. Don't get me wrong, if there is no tangible and no foreseeable change in direction where some of the infrastructure is now fucking been wiped off the map and it's not coming, that's a severe change of course and therefore a change of reason why you could have bought there if it's unforeseen. Yeah. But if all that stuff is still yet to come, Bradley James, as you've experienced, just hold on, brother. Yeah. And that 5, 6, 7% growth is more than adequate for low risk investors. That's my opinion. Ryan, keen on your thoughts.
I agree. I think the points you touched on. So if the location or the region is still expecting and projected population growth, right, and the government is still spending a large amount of money on infrastructure projects that have or haven't been completed yet, there's still plenty of growth to come. When you look at, how much is a reasonable amount, if you look at, say, Melbourne, for example, over the last 30 years on average, it's about 5.8% per annum. Now, that's not year on year because of cycles, but if we're talking about a 10-year plus horizon, in the Melbourne market, you would expect something to be around that 5 to 6%. That's a sustainable, low-risk growth that would outrun inflation and do all the things that it's supposed to do. Yeah. And Brisbane's Southeast Queensland is going to be a similar scenario moving forward as well.
Yeah, because it was flat for many, many years, and then away she went. All the infrastructure came in, and now we're obviously got the build up for the Olympics coming, etc. So
it's been on a run for the last 2 or 3 years. Will it continue at that level of growth? Who knows?
But here's the other thing, team. Just as I wrap up, I hate going over time. It's not in my. Weirdly, I do not have a call after tonight. I've almost always got a call. I got to fucking go. I got to bolt home, say hi to the kids and the dogs in fucking 10 seconds, and boom. Hey, John and Sally, how you going? I fucking just finished doing live. I don't have one of those tonight, so we can sit here for a little longer. The three of you that are still with us.
I've got plenty of people with
Oh, good. It's like, how many people watching tonight? I'm like, well, I was sitting with one and one was watching. That's all I know. We can just see a bunch of cameras. I've lost my train of thought here a little bit. Apologies. What was I talking about, Rhino?
We were talking about growth, location.
Yeah, I know that.
Per annum.
I'm so sorry, man. I've lost my bloody train of thought. Can we rewind that bit? I'll have to come back with a replay.
These days.
I'll have to come back with a replay. But yeah, look, just have that strategic mindset sorry, that's what I was going to say. If your budget is $650,000, you've got no choice. So you need to be able to work within that budget, the whole left and right of arc strong point methodology, right? Bradley James, I'm still talking to you, mate. I'm being formal here because everyone else knows you as that. I know exactly who you are, brother. If the range card of the strong point says the left and right of arc is X, that's the only places you can shoot, watch and shoot. End of story, fucking no questions asked. You're in fucking jail probably if you're out of that. You'll be in financial jail if you try and buy a property outside of the left and right of arc. So all right, if that's property at that value doesn't exist in Southeast Queensland, very respectfully, brother, your point about comparing maybe the Melbourne market to the Southeast Queensland market is a moot point. Because if you can't buy in Southeast Queensland, where's the most appropriate growth corridor that suits your budget, that has a brimming amount of the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market that you put your flag in the sand and hope like fuck it goes up in value? I don't like to use the H word, but without a crystal ball, and we don't live on hopium here, and that's, I've continued to turn my back on so many clients. I literally had a connection call just quickly. I know we've still got 3 people watching us, which is all right. John and Sally, not their real names, called me and they're like, hey, Robbie, so great to meet you. I feel like I'm talking to a bit of an internet star. I'm like, I'm fucking not far from an internet star, so just cut that shit out straight away. They're like, no, we've been following you for a couple of years. We love it how you swear on your videos and stuff. As my mum will let you know, I do swear a lot less these days. I might have even dropped only 1 or 2 F-bombs tonight, if any. They're like, hey, good news. I'm like, yeah, so what are you here for? They're like, good news, we've just landed in Darwin. And we've got our deposit ready, and I know they got a good first home owners grant up here, and we're ready to build our own home, and we're ready to get started with Axon. And I'm like, a bit like those family that's just worked out they're having twins that they didn't even fucking ask for. I'm like, got some news for you, team. We don't operate in Darwin.
Yep.
Yeah. No, we got all that. But like, this is our own home. This is not a wealth creation choice. We need Axon's help to buy our own home. And I'm to the crux of it, I'm like, if it doesn't have all 7 of the 7 ingredients, John and Sarah, I'm so sorry. I appreciate you been following us, but I'm not putting my name, my brand, my reputation to something which I don't believe personally and professionally is going to suit your financial circumstances.
Yep.
And their fucking jaws hit the floor. And I said, there are others out there that'll be more than happy to help you go and buy your own home in Darwin.
Yeah.
Go reach out to them. I'm not your guy. I'm so sorry. I was nicer than that, of course. Like a little bit. But, you know, I want all of you out there listening and put it on the public record that we unfortunately say no to people as evidenced by what you know or not yet, whatever that looks like. If it's not the right time, the right place, and it's not the right thing to do, then we ain't putting our name to it because I don't want to end up on Today Tonight, not for property reasons anyway. I don't want to end up on a current affair either to say that these dodgy bastards bloody bought us a house up in Darwin and it's fucked our financial future. So it's just not happening.
Yep.
Anyway, that's where I lost my train of thought amongst. So hopefully that answers your question, Bradley James, and you and your wonderful young family up there in far north Queensland, mate. So I hope everything's going well. All right.
That's it.
Just quickly, Melbourne and Newcastle elite meetups coming up.
Shit, nearly forgot.
27th of July in Melbourne.
Yeah.
If you are in Melbourne and you're part of our elite program, please get in touch with whoever is your primary point of contact at Axon tomorrow and let us know you're in town.
Yep.
If you're in Newcastle, Saturday the 30th of August, same deal. Let us know you're in town. Get her on the bloody invite list. All the beers, all the sausage rolls, plus. Kelly will bloody kill me tomorrow. She's like, we don't just have sausage rolls, you know. I'd like a decent sausage roll.
Me too.
She's like, I can see that. I'm a fucking pie eater from way back. But yeah, come along and, you know, let's have a drink and have a nibble and bloody shake each other's hands and all that stuff to really get to connect with each other.
They are special nights,
Don't forget, tax time 2025. Pull your finger out. It's 10 grand or so sitting in the ATO's account. Get it in your account so you can be smart with it going
Don't do what
forward.
I did and wait till January next year. It's a
Thanks,
waste of
legend.
time. Thanks, mate.
Great to see you again. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for listening in, all three.